Tonight, you don't need to solve anything. You don't need to plan tomorrow. You don't need to replay today. For the next little while, your only job is to rest. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a quiet bamboo grove, somewhere far from notifications, far from traffic, far from expectations. The air is cool, soft with the scent of green leaves and earth after rain. Above you, tall bamboo stalks rise gently toward the moonlight, swaying just slightly, as if breathing, and as the wind moves through them, they whisper, not loudly, not urgently, just a soft, natural rustle, like the world reminding you that it knows how to slow down. Tonight I'll share 100 soothing facts about bamboo groves, about the quiet music of rustling stalks, and the Zen traditions that found wisdom in these forests centuries ago. There's nothing to memorize, nothing to focus on too hard, just gentle thoughts, floating past, like leaves drifting across still water. If your mind wanders, that's perfectly okay. If you fall asleep halfway through, even better. Let the bamboo hold the night for you. Take a slow breath in, and let it go. Now, let's step inside the grove. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in slowly. Now imagine you are standing at the edge of a forest unlike any other, not of oak, not of pine, not of cedar, but of bamboo. The stalks rise around you like green pillars of an ancient cathedral, swaying almost imperceptibly in a warm, unhurried breeze. The light filters through in long, liquid ribbons of gold and jade. And the sound is something the world has been making for millions of years before you arrived. This is a bamboo grove, and it has been waiting for you. What you are standing inside is not, technically, a forest at all, at least not in the way science defines one. Bamboo is not a tree. It is, remarkably, a grass, the largest grass on the planet Earth. Belonging to the family Poaceae, it shares its botanical lineage with the humble blades beneath your feet in an ordinary lawn, and with the wheat fields that feed civilizations. Yet here it stands, some species soaring to heights of 30 meters or more, its hollow stalks creaking softly overhead like the rigging of a tall ship in a quiet harbor. There is something quietly humbling about that, the idea that the most towering, cathedral-like groves in the natural world are built not from the stuff of mighty oaks, but from grass. Enormously, impossibly tall grass, reaching for a sky it will always find. Bamboo has been growing on this earth for far longer than any human meditation tradition. Fossil evidence places bamboo at roughly 30 to 40 million years ago, long before our earliest human ancestors drew their first breath. It watched the Himalayas rise. It survived ice ages and shifting continents. It has outlasted countless species that came and went while it simply continued. When you sit beneath bamboo and seek stillness, you are placing yourself in the company of one of the oldest living witnesses on the planet. That thought alone is worth several minutes of quiet contemplation. Run your hand along the surface of a stalk, a cone, as botanists properly call it. Feel how smooth it is. How cool. Each segment of that cone is separated by a raised ridge called a node, and it is at these nodes that bamboo draws much of its structural strength. The internodes, the hollow chambers between each node, are what give bamboo its legendary lightness. This elegant architecture of hollow chambers and reinforced joints is so efficient that modern engineers have studied it extensively. applying the same principles to the design of everything from aerospace components to earthquake-resistant buildings. Ancient grass. Modern marvel. Now listen. Truly listen to the grove. That soft percussion you hear, that rhythmic clicking and whispering when the wind moves through, is the sound that has drawn human beings into states of deep calm for thousands of years. In Japan, the deliberate cultivation of bamboo groves near temples and meditation gardens was not accidental. The sound of bamboo in wind, called take no ko, literally, the voice of bamboo, was considered by Zen monks to be a natural koan, a question without a fixed answer that the mind could rest upon rather than solve. The sound asks nothing of you. It simply speaks, and in speaking, quiets the noise inside. Zen Buddhism, which gave us so much of the meditative language we associate with bamboo groves today, arrived in Japan from China in the late 12th century, carried largely by the monk Eisai, who returned from his studies in China in 1191. But bamboo's spiritual significance in East Asia predates even that by centuries. In Chinese Taoist and Confucian thought, bamboo had long been revered as one of the three friends of winter, Suihan Sanyu, alongside the pine and the plum blossom. These three plants were celebrated because they endure. They do not wither when the cold comes. They persist, and in persisting, they teach. What bamboo teaches, perhaps above all else, is the art of bending without breaking. This is not metaphor, it is botany. The tensile strength of certain bamboo species rivals that of mild steel, and yet a bamboo stalk will flex dramatically in a storm rather than snap. Engineers call this quality resilience. Philosophers call it wisdom. And in the Zen tradition, it became one of the central visual symbols of the ideal human character, deeply rooted, upright in stillness, yielding in motion. You can bend me, the bamboo says, but you will not find my breaking point. The roots beneath your feet right now, if you were truly standing in a bamboo grove, would tell a story of extraordinary underground intelligence. Most bamboo species spread through a vast network of rhizomes, horizontal underground stems that can extend many meters in every direction from the parent plant. A single grove may in fact be one single organism, all connected beneath the soil, sharing water and nutrients through this silent, subterranean network. What appears above ground as dozens of separate stalks may, below ground, be one continuous living body. The grove is not a crowd. The grove is one. There are over 1,400 known species of bamboo in the world, growing across Asia, the Americas, Africa, and Australia. They range from tiny dwarf varieties no taller than your ankle to the towering giants of the Mozo bamboo forests of China and Japan, where culms can reach the height of a 10-story building. The Arashiyama Bamboo Grove in Kyoto, Japan, perhaps the most photographed bamboo grove on Earth, is composed almost entirely of Mozo bamboo, Philostachys edulis, whose culms can grow to a thickness wider than your fist. Walking between them feels less like walking through a garden and more like passing through the columns of a living temple. And speaking of growth, few things in the natural world grow with the quiet, relentless momentum of bamboo. The Mozo species holds a world record that still astonishes those who encounter it for the first time. Under ideal conditions, it can grow up to 91 centimeters, nearly a full meter, in a single day. You could, theoretically, sit beside a bamboo shoot at dawn and return by nightfall to find it noticeably taller. This is not sudden or violent growth. It makes no sound. It asks no attention. It simply rises, steadily and without drama, which is perhaps the finest model for a meditation practice that has ever existed in the natural world. And yet, for all its speed of growth, bamboo asks something remarkable of those who would cultivate it. Many species of bamboo spend their first several years investing entirely underground, building root systems, strengthening rhizome networks, preparing their foundations, before a single visible shoot emerges from the earth. To the surface observer, nothing is happening. The ground appears empty, unremarkable. Only those who understand what is happening beneath the soil know that something extraordinary is being patiently constructed in the dark. This is why bamboo became, in many contemplative traditions, the ultimate symbol of the inner life, of the work that happens in silence, below the surface, where no one can see it, and where it matters most. You have not moved, and yet something in you has already shifted. That is the quiet power of a place like this. It does not demand your transformation. It does not ask you to try. It simply surrounds you with its particular quality of aliveness, and something inside you, recognizing it, begins to soften at the edges. The bamboo does not meditate at you. It merely is. Completely, unhurriedly, magnificently is. And slowly, without quite knowing how, you begin to follow its example. Let us go deeper into the grove. There is more here than first the eye finds. The color of bamboo is one of its first quiet teachings. Most people see green, a single, simple green, and move on. But spend time in a bamboo grove and you begin to notice that the green is never just one thing. Young culms emerge from the earth wrapped in a dusty, silver-blue bloom, a powdery coating called a culm sheath, which protects the new growth as it races upward. As the stalk matures, that protective layer falls away and the true surface is revealed, sometimes a deep forest green, sometimes golden yellow, sometimes a deep ebony black, depending entirely on the species. The black bamboo, Philosticus nigra, begins its life green and slowly darkens over 2 to 3 years to a rich, lustrous black that has made it one of the most prized ornamental plants in contemplative garden design throughout history. Patience, it whispers, will reveal the color you were always meant to be. The bamboo grove has long been a place of sound as much as of sight, and the specific acoustic quality of a grove is something that researchers have begun to study with genuine scientific interest. Unlike dense broadleaf forests, which absorb and muffle sound, bamboo groves create what acoustic ecologists describe as a dynamic sound environment. The hollow culms, the clashing and brushing of leaves, and the structure of the grove itself interact with wind to produce a layered, ever-changing soundscape that has been shown in studies to measurably reduce cortisol levels in the human body. Stress, in the presence of bamboo, does not just feel as though it fades. It biochemically does. The grove is not merely a backdrop for peace. It is an active participant in delivering it. Water and bamboo have always shared a language. In the traditional Japanese garden art of shakiai, meaning borrowed scenery, bamboo was frequently planted beside or behind water features so that its reflection would move and shift with the current, doubling the sense of living motion without adding a single new element. There is also a specific garden instrument, invented during the Muromachi period in Japan, called the shirshirodoshi, a pivoting bamboo pipe that fills slowly with water, tips, and then strikes a stone with a single, clean knock before resetting. Originally designed to scare deer from gardens, It was adopted so enthusiastically by Zen monks for its meditative rhythm that it became a permanent feature of contemplative garden design. One sound, one moment, then silence. Then it begins again. To understand why bamboo took such a central place in Zen aesthetics, it helps to understand something of what Zen is actually reaching for. The Japanese concept of ma, often translated as negative space, or pause, or the pregnant interval between things, is considered in Zen philosophy to be just as real and just as significant as the things themselves. And bamboo, with its hollow interior, its spaced nodes, its rhythmic alternation of solid and empty, is perhaps the most perfect physical expression of ma that nature has ever produced. The space inside the comb is not absence. It is the feature. The hollow is the point. And in a meditation practice, the pause between thoughts is not failure. It is the destination. The oldest continuously maintained bamboo grove associated with Zen practice in Japan is widely considered to be part of the grounds of Tennoji Temple in Kyoto's Arashiyama district, established in 1339 by the great Zen master Muso Soseki. Soseki was not only a monk but a landscape architect of visionary skill, and he understood that a garden was not decoration but instruction, a three-dimensional teaching tool in which every plant, stone, and body of water was positioned to prompt a specific quality of attention in the person moving through it. The bamboo he planted, or that grew in the groves surrounding his design, was never incidental. It was curriculum. Walking through Arashiyama today, more than 600 years later, you are walking through a lesson that has never been cancelled. Bamboo has fed people for just as long as it has moved them spiritually. The young shoots of many bamboo species, harvested in the weeks immediately after they emerge from the ground, before they harden into woody combs, have been a staple food across East and Southeast Asia for thousands of years. In Chinese cuisine alone, bamboo shoots appear in records dating back over 2,500 years, prized for their delicate, slightly sweet flavor and their remarkable nutritional density. They are high in fiber, rich in potassium, and contain a range of amino acids rarely found together in a single plant source. The same stalk that shelters the meditating monk also feeds the hungry farmer. In bamboo, the sacred and the sustaining have always been the same thing. Perhaps the most enduring symbol bamboo has given to contemplative culture is not a sound or a color but a painting. The tradition of ink-brushed bamboo painting, chikuga in Japanese, shuhua in Chinese, is one of the longest continuous artistic traditions in the world, practiced without interruption for over 1,000 years. Zen monks in particular adopted bamboo as the ideal subject for meditative brushwork, because painting bamboo correctly required not technical skill alone, but a quality of full presence. You could not paint good bamboo while distracted. The brush knew. The line would falter, stiffen, lose its breath. To paint bamboo was to become, temporarily, as attentive and as still as bamboo itself. The painting was not the goal. The state required to make it was. And then there is the matter of flowering, perhaps the most mysterious chapter in the entire life of bamboo. Most bamboo species are monocarpic, meaning they flower only once in their entire lifetime, then die. The interval between flowerings varies dramatically by species but follows a fixed internal clock with extraordinary precision. Some species flower every 15 years. Others wait 30, 60, or even 120 years. The mozo bamboo flowers approximately every 67 years. When it does, every mozo plant on Earth flowers simultaneously, regardless of geography, regardless of climate, a grove in Kyoto and a grove in the mountains of Sichuan and a grove in a botanical garden in England all blooming at once, as if receiving a signal from somewhere older and deeper than weather. No one has ever fully explained the mechanism. The bamboo keeps its own counsel. And so we arrive at the heart of what the bamboo grove has always truly been: not a garden feature, not a crop, not a backdrop for beautiful photographs, but a living teacher of the most fundamental kind. It grows in the dark before it grows in the light. It is strongest where it is hollow. It bends toward the storm and rises again without bitterness. It connects beneath the surface to everything around it while appearing, above ground, to stand completely alone. It has been here for 40 million years, and it has not once, in all that time, been in a hurry. It flowers once, fully, completely, magnificently, and then it rests. There is a Zen saying, attributed to no single master because it belongs to all of them: before enlightenment, chopped wood carry water. After enlightenment, chopped wood carry water. The bamboo has its own version of this wisdom, written not in words but in the quiet, absolute language of living things. Before the grove, grow roots. After the grove, grow roots. The work is the same. The stillness is the same. Only the listening changes. There is a particular quality of silence that only exists inside a bamboo grove. It is not the silence of an empty room, or the silence of a held breath, or even the silence of deep wilderness. It is a living silence, one that is constantly being made and unmade by the grove itself, woven together from 1,000 small sounds so that the whole becomes, paradoxically, a form of quiet. The Japanese have a word for this kind of layered, inhabited stillness: shizukiza. It does not mean the absence of sound. It means the presence of peace. And if you have ever stood inside a bamboo grove on a windless morning and felt the world contract to just this, just here, just now, then you already know this word, even if you have never heard it spoken. Come further in. The grove has more to give. Beneath the visible beauty of a bamboo grove lies one of the most extraordinary ecological stories in the plant kingdom. Bamboo is among the most efficient carbon-sequestering plants on Earth, absorbing carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen at a rate significantly higher than equivalent stands of trees. A grove of bamboo can sequester up to 12 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year, roughly 5 times the capacity of a typical pine forest of the same size. In an age of climate anxiety, the bamboo grove offers something rare, genuine, measurable hope growing quietly in the earth, doing its work without announcement, without machinery, without anything at all except sunlight and rain and the unhurried will to keep growing. The bamboo's relationship with light is one of its most quietly spectacular qualities. Because bamboo culms grow so tall and so close together in a mature grove, the canopy they create is dense enough to filter sunlight into something altogether different from ordinary daylight. Photographers and filmmakers have long sought this quality, a soft, diffused luminosity that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, casting no hard shadows, softening every edge. In Japanese aesthetics, this quality of light is connected to the concept of kamaribi, a word with no direct English translation, describing the interplay of light and leaves when sunlight filters through a forest canopy. Bamboo groves produce kamaribi of extraordinary delicacy, and it has been documented in studies of restorative environments that this specific quality of dappled, moving light has a measurable calming effect on the human nervous system. Sound healers and acoustic therapists have in recent years turned considerable attention toward bamboo as a therapeutic instrument. Bamboo wind chimes, bamboo flutes, and bamboo percussion instruments produce tones in a frequency range that many practitioners associate with the calming of the parasympathetic nervous system, the part of our neurology responsible for the body's rest and digest response. As opposed to the stress-driven fight or flight mode most modern people spend far too much of their lives inhabiting. The shakuhachi, a traditional Japanese end-blown bamboo flute, has been used in formal meditation and healing practices since the 13th century. Its breathy, imperfect tone, which varies subtly with every breath of the player, was considered by Zen monks of the Fuke sect to be a form of meditation in itself. They called their practice Sui Zen, blowing meditation, and held that enlightenment could be found not in sitting still, but in a single, perfectly breathed note. The grove we are sitting in together has almost certainly been shaped by human hands at some point in its history, even if it feels entirely wild. The art of bamboo grove cultivation, selecting species, managing density, pruning dead combs, controlling rhizome spread, has been practiced in Japan, China, and Korea for well over 1,000 years. In the great temple gardens of the Muromachi period, head gardeners known as Niwashir were responsible not just for planting but for listening, for understanding the particular acoustic and visual character a grove needed to produce in order to serve its contemplative purpose. They would thin combs not at random but with an ear for what remained, the way a composer removes notes to reveal a melody. The grove was never left to chance. It was composed. Bamboo has played a remarkable and often overlooked role in the history of human communication. Before paper made from wood pulp became standard, the earliest books in China were written on strips of bamboo, bound together with cords of silk or leather. These bamboo books, Si or Jianzi, date back to at least the 5th century BC and represent some of the earliest surviving records of Chinese philosophical thought, including early Confucian and Taoist texts. There is something deeply resonant about the idea that the plant which became a symbol of meditative stillness was also, for centuries, the physical medium through which the wisest human thoughts were preserved and carried forward. Bamboo did not merely shelter contemplation. It carried it. The giant panda, one of the most recognizable animals on Earth, subsists almost entirely on bamboo, consuming up to 38 kilograms of it every single day. The panda's dependence on bamboo is so total that it has shaped the animal's entire anatomy. A modified wrist bone that functions as a sixth finger, evolved specifically to grip bamboo stalks. A jaw muscled far beyond what its bare ancestry would suggest, developed to crush the tough fibrous combs. The panda and the bamboo grove exist in a relationship of complete mutual definition, each shaped by the other over millions of years into perfect, if unlikely, partnership. To protect bamboo groves is to protect this animal. To lose the groves is to lose, piece by piece, the possibility of the panda. The grove is not a backdrop. It is a world. In the Zen tradition, the bamboo grove holds a specific narrative significance that most visitors to places like Arashiyama never know. The first recorded moment of Zen enlightenment in Chinese history, the awakening of the monk Ling Zhao, as described in the Blue Cliff Record, one of the foundational texts of Zen Buddhism, is said to have occurred in a bamboo grove. The sound that triggered his awakening was a single stone, thrown accidentally, striking a bamboo comb. One sound. One moment. the mind cracked open. This story became a cornerstone of Zen teaching precisely because it illustrated that enlightenment was not found through years of intellectual effort alone, but had to arrive, through direct, unmediated sensory experience. The bamboo did not explain itself. It simply sounded. And in that sounding, everything changed. There is a practice in some Zen traditions of kinhin, walking meditation, conducted specifically through bamboo groves. Unlike sitting meditation, kinhin engages the meditator in slow, deliberate movement, typically one step per breath, with the eyes soft-focused and the attention resting not on any single object but on the totality of the sensory field. A bamboo grove is considered an ideal environment for kinhin because the visual rhythm of the combs, the repeated vertical lines, the regular spacing, the alternating light and shadow, provides a gentle, non-demanding structure for the wandering eye, freeing the mind from the effort of processing visual novelty. The grove does the work. The walker simply moves through it, and in moving becomes still. And here, perhaps, is the deepest truth the bamboo grove offers to anyone who has ever sought a quieter mind. The grove does not distinguish between the monk who has practiced for 40 years and the child who has wandered in by accident. It does not reward effort or punish distraction. It offers the same filtered light, the same kamaribi, the same voice of wind through hollow stalks, to every living creature that passes beneath its canopy. The deer rests here. The monk sits here. The lost traveler pauses here and, without quite knowing why, feels something loosen in the chest. The bamboo makes no judgment about who deserves its peace. It simply offers it, completely, endlessly, to everyone. That is what it means to be rooted. Not to hold on tightly, but to be so deeply anchored that you can afford to give everything away. Rain is coming. You can hear it before it arrives, a gathering whisper in the upper canopy, the sound of 1,000 leaves turning to receive it. In a bamboo grove, rain does not fall the way it falls in open places. It is intercepted, softened, divided, caught by leaf after leaf on its way down until by the time it reaches the earth it has been transformed from weather into something closer to mist. You do not get wet in a bamboo grove so much as you are gradually included in its moisture. The boundary between inside and outside, between the self that arrived and the grove that received it, continues to dissolve. This is the fourth passage of our journey together. We have walked far enough now that the entrance to the grove is no longer visible. There is only the grove, in every direction, as far as attention reaches. Good. This is exactly where we need to be. Bamboo has one of the most extraordinary relationships with soil of any plant on earth. Because bamboo sheds its leaves continuously throughout the year, rather than in a single seasonal drop, the forest floor beneath a mature grove is perpetually covered in a deep, slowly decomposing layer of organic matter. This creates a soil ecology of remarkable richness and stability. Bamboo leaf litter decomposes at a rate that continuously replenishes soil nitrogen and potassium, creating conditions in which other plant species also thrive. In regions of China and Japan where bamboo groves border agricultural land, farmers have understood for centuries that the soil nearest the grove is invariably the most fertile. The bamboo does not hoard its wealth. It builds the ground for everything around it. The word bamboo itself carries a history as layered as the plant. Its English form is believed to derive from the Malay word mambu or the Kannada word bamboo, arriving in European languages through the trade routes of the 16th century Portuguese explorers who encountered it along the coasts of India and Southeast Asia. Before bamboo had a name in Western languages, it had already accumulated thousands of years of names, meanings, and sacred associations in the cultures that had grown alongside it. In Sanskrit it was called Venu, and it was the wood of the god Krishna's flute, the instrument whose music, in Hindu cosmology, called all living things toward the divine. The plant arrived in Europe as an exotic curiosity. Everywhere else, it had always been home. In the highlands of Ethiopia, a species of bamboo called Arundinaria alpina, African alpine bamboo, forms vast, mist-shrouded groves at elevations above 2,000 meters, covering more than 1 million hectares of mountain terrain. These groves are among the least known and least visited bamboo forests on Earth, yet they are among the most ecologically significant. They act as immense water towers, capturing moisture from clouds and releasing it slowly into river systems that feed millions of people downstream. The Nile itself draws a portion of its headwater flow from highlands where this bamboo grows. The grove, utterly unknown to most of the world, quietly sustains it. The tensile and compressive properties of bamboo were understood by builders long before modern materials science gave them a language to describe what they were working with. In the Fujian province of China, covered bridges built primarily from bamboo have stood for over 3 centuries, bearing the weight of daily foot traffic across mountain rivers without significant structural failure. In parts of South and Southeast Asia, bamboo scaffolding is still preferred over steel for the construction of high-rise buildings. It is lighter, cheaper, faster to assemble, and in certain loading conditions, mechanically superior. When a typhoon hit Hong Kong in 1999, bamboo scaffolding on several construction sites survived intact while steel scaffolding on adjacent buildings buckled. Flexibility, once again, outlasting rigidity. There is a form of Japanese garden design that takes its entire conceptual structure from bamboo. The roji, the dewy path, is a garden approach developed in the 16th century by the great tea master Sen no Rikyu as the path leading to the tea house, designed to transition the visitor from the busy world into a state of quiet receptivity before the tea ceremony began. Bamboo features prominently in the classic roji, as fences, gates, water ladles, and canopy overhead, because each element bamboo contributed was understood to carry not just function but feeling. The sound of a bamboo gate closing behind you was not incidental. It was the first instruction: what was behind you is behind you now. Turn your attention forward and inward. Of all the creatures that have evolved alongside bamboo, none has done so more intimately than the mountain gorilla subspecies of Central Africa, which uses bamboo shoots as a critical seasonal food source and has been observed using bamboo cones as tools, carrying them, leaning on them, and in documented cases using them to test water depth before crossing streams. Researchers studying gorilla cognition have noted that the tool use behaviors most consistently observed in wild populations center on bamboo, suggesting that the plant may have played a role in the cognitive development of these animals over evolutionary time. The grove, it seems, does not merely shelter intelligence. In some cases, it may have helped build it. In Chinese classical poetry, bamboo appears more frequently than any other plant, more than the lotus, more than the cherry blossom, more than the chrysanthemum. The Tang Dynasty poet Wang Wei, who lived from 699 to 761 CE and is considered one of the greatest nature poets in Chinese literary history, wrote of bamboo not merely as scenery but as companion. His poem Bamboo Lodge describes sitting alone in a grove at night, playing the qin, a stringed instrument, deep in the forest where no one could hear, the bamboo his only audience. The deep forest, no one knows, he wrote. The bright moon comes to shine on me. The grove as witness. The grove as the one presence that requires nothing of you and receives everything. The practice of bamboo forest bathing, an extension of the broader Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, developed formally in Japan in the 1980s, has accumulated a substantial body of scientific support in the decades since. Studies conducted in bamboo-specific environments have found that spending as little as 20 minutes walking slowly through a bamboo grove produces measurable reductions in blood pressure, heart rate, and levels of the stress hormone cortisol, while simultaneously increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain associated with calm, focused, reflective thought. The meditators and monks who built their temples beside bamboo groves did not have neuroscience, but they had something equally reliable: thousands of years of direct observation of what happened to a human being who spent quiet time among these stalks. They were right. The science simply caught up. And the rain has arrived now, fully and gently, moving through the grove in sheets that the canopy breaks into something softer than rain, a presence rather than a weather, the kind of moisture that does not demand shelter but simply asks to be received. The bamboo receives it without resistance. The leaves turn up to catch it. The culms darken as they drink. The earth below opens and accepts what is offered. Nothing is stored that is not needed. Nothing is refused that comes freely given. The grove does not negotiate with the rain. It simply opens. This is the fourth of 10 passages we will walk together through this grove. And with each one, the grove has shown us something new about the same essential truth, that strength and softness are not opposites, that the greatest structures are built on patience and deep roots, and that the wisest response to what falls from the sky is simply to open, receive, and let it feed you. The path continues. The rain continues. And the bamboo, as it always has, continues too. We are at the midpoint now. 5 passages behind us, 5 ahead. This is the place in every journey where the beginning is gone and the end is not yet visible, where there is only the walking, only the path, only the continuing. It is also, if we are honest, the hardest place to be. The human mind loves beginnings and endings. It finds middles uncomfortable, uncertain, open. And yet the middle is where the actual journey lives. The beginning is just arrival. The ending is just departure. Everything that matters happens here, in the unremarkable, irreplaceable middle of things. The bamboo, of course, has always known this. It does not rush toward its flowering. It does not mourn its beginning. It is simply, completely here, in the middle of its life, in the middle of this grove, in the middle of this particular afternoon, and it finds that to be entirely enough. Let us rest here together. Let the grove teach us what the middle feels like when we stop fighting it. Bamboo has a relationship with fire that defies simple expectation. While it is true that dried bamboo is highly flammable, bamboo torches were used as a light source across Asia for thousands of years. Living bamboo groves are remarkably fire-resistant, owing to their extraordinarily high moisture content. A mature comb can contain up to 90% water by mass in its living tissue. During the atomic bombing of Hiroshima in August 1945, bamboo groves in the surrounding hills were among the very first living things to regenerate in the blast zone, sending up new shoots from surviving rhizomes within weeks of the devastation. The city of Hiroshima later adopted the bamboo as one of its symbols of resilience and renewal, not because it was untouched by what happened, but because it came back when nothing else could. The ancient Chinese practice of feng shui, the art of arranging space to harmonize with the flow of natural energy, or qi, assigns bamboo a specific and highly auspicious role in the landscape. Bamboo planted to the east of a dwelling is considered to invite health and new beginnings, owing to its association with the rising sun and the wood element in Chinese cosmological thought. Bamboo in the garden more broadly is considered a conductor of positive qi, its upward growth channeling energy toward the sky while its roots anchor and stabilize the ground energy below. For thousands of years, Chinese families planted bamboo not simply because it was useful or beautiful, but because they understood their home and the plants around it to be a single, energetically interconnected system. The garden was not decoration. It was architecture of a different kind. Few materials have carried human thought across greater distances than bamboo in its role as the raw material for one of humanity's oldest writing tools. The bamboo brush, maofeng in Chinese, was the instrument with which the vast majority of classical Chinese literature, philosophy, and calligraphy was produced. The craftsmanship of a good bamboo brush was itself considered a spiritual practice. The bamboo handle had to be precisely weighted, the tip formed from the finest animal hair, the balance between handle and tip calibrated so that the brush became an extension of the hand and, through the hand, of the mind. A calligrapher holding a fine bamboo brush was not just writing. They were practicing a form of moving meditation whose origins are at least as old as Zen itself, and whose demands, total presence, relaxed control, breath aligned with stroke, are identical to those of seated practice. The sound ecology of a bamboo grove changes measurably with the seasons, and experienced practitioners of bamboo meditation have long understood that each season offers a different quality of teaching. In spring, when new shoots are racing upward and the grove is dense with vigorous growth, the soundscape is bright and quick, a higher pitch, more movement, more collision of leaf on leaf. In summer, the mature combs stand at full height and the canopy is thick enough to create a cathedral hush, the sounds deepened and slowed by the mass of growth overhead. In autumn, the leaves thin and the wind finds more space between the stalks, producing a clearer, lonelier, more meditative tone. And in winter, stripped to its essentials, the bamboo grove becomes a study in minimalism, the stark verticals, the spare percussion of comb on comb, the sound of pure structure moving in cold air. 4 seasons. 4 different silences. 1 grove. In the mountainous Sichuan province of China, where some of the world's most ancient bamboo forests still stand relatively undisturbed, there exists a tradition among local communities of entering the bamboo forest alone on the morning of a significant life transition, before a marriage, after a death, at the beginning of a new year, and sitting in silence for as long as felt necessary. No ritual words are spoken. No specific posture is required. The forest is simply visited, as one might visit a wise elder, and the visitor sits in its company and lets whatever needs to move through them move through. They do not call this meditation. They do not call it prayer. They call it simply going to the bamboo. The practice requires no instruction because the grove itself provides all the instruction needed. Among the many things bamboo has given to human material culture, its contribution to the development of early electrical technology is perhaps the most startling. Thomas Edison, in his search for a reliable filament for his electric light bulb, tested over 6,000 different materials before settling, in 1879, on Carbonaceous bamboo fiber, specifically from a species sourced from Kyoto, Japan. Bamboo filaments in Edison's bulbs burned for over 1,200 hours, far outperforming every other material he tested. For more than a decade, bamboo was the filament that lit the first electrically illuminated cities in human history. Every drawing room that glowed with the new miracle of electric light in the 1880s was, in a small and largely forgotten sense, lit by a bamboo grove. Bamboo has a unique and ancient relationship with the sacred in the Hindu tradition, particularly in its role as the material of the flute, the bansuri, played by the god Krishna. In the Bhagavata Purana, one of the foundational texts of Hindu devotional literature, the sound of Krishna's bamboo flute is described as capable of drawing all living things, animals, rivers, trees, and stones, toward the divine. The bamboo, in this telling, was chosen not despite its hollowness but because of it. Only a vessel that has surrendered its interior, that has made itself empty, can be played by the divine breath. The hollow comb becomes the instrument. The emptiness is the music. This theology of sacred emptiness maps so precisely onto the Zen concept of sunyata, the luminous void at the center of all things, that scholars of comparative religion have long noted it as one of the most striking convergences in world spiritual thought. Research into the psychology of natural environments has identified something that scientists call soft fascination, a quality of attention engaged by natural scenes that is restful rather than demanding, that draws the eye and mind gently without requiring effortful concentration. Bamboo groves score extraordinarily high on every measure of soft fascination. The repeated pattern of vertical combs satisfies the mind's hunger for order, while the constant subtle variation in color, spacing, and movement prevents the boredom of true repetition. The movement of the canopy engages peripheral vision in a way that researchers associate with deep relaxation. The sounds are complex enough to be interesting, and simple enough not to require interpretation. The grove is, in measurable neurological terms, almost perfectly designed to rest a tired human mind. The oldest living bamboo grove on record is found in the gardens of the Ryoanji Temple in Kyoto, a UNESCO World Heritage Site most famous for its Zen rock garden. The bamboo in those temple grounds has been under continuous cultivation and care for over 500 years, tended by successive generations of monks who understood their role not as owners of the grove but as its temporary stewards. Each generation received the grove from the one before and passed it, slightly more established, slightly more rooted, slightly more itself, to the one that followed. No individual monk ever saw the grove in its full maturity. Each one simply did their part, pruned, watered, listened, and let go. The grove that exists today is the accumulated work of 5 centuries of anonymous care. It belongs to no one. It was made by everyone. And so here we stand, precisely in the middle of this grove, of this journey, of this afternoon that has grown so quiet around us that it is beginning to feel less like an afternoon and more like a state of being. The bamboo does not mark this moment. It does not know that we have reached the halfway point. It is simply here, as it was here before we arrived and will be here long after we have gone, doing the one thing it has always done, growing, breathing, bending, returning, offering, without condition, the same green shelter to every creature passing through. In the middle of all things, this is what remains: the grove, the stillness, the invitation to simply continue. Language is a remarkable thing. We use it to reach toward the things that matter most: love, grief, wonder, the quality of light on a particular morning, and it almost always falls slightly short. The most important experiences of a human life are precisely those for which words arrive late, or arrive inadequate, or do not arrive at all. The Japanese have a name for this phenomenon: mano no aware. The bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of things, the ache of beauty that is already passing even as we receive it. It is not sadness, exactly. It is something deeper and more tender than sadness. And there is perhaps no better place to feel it than here, standing in a bamboo grove, watching the light move, knowing that this exact quality of afternoon will never come again, and finding that knowledge not devastating but quietly, ineffably beautiful. The grove speaks in a language older than any human tongue. Let us try, for a while, to listen in that language. Bamboo textile production is one of the oldest and most sophisticated in Asia, with records of bamboo fiber clothing dating back over 4,000 years in China. The process of transforming a rigid comb into wearable fabric is laborious and ancient. The fibers must be mechanically separated, wet in water to soften, combed, spun, and woven with extraordinary patience before they yield a cloth that is softer than cotton, naturally antimicrobial, and possesses a moisture-wicking quality that makes it comfortable in both heat and cold. Monks in certain Chinese and Japanese Buddhist traditions wore bamboo fiber undergarments specifically for this thermoregulating quality, which allowed them to sit in meditation for extended periods without the distraction of physical discomfort. Even the clothes they wore were, in a sense, made of stillness. The relationship between bamboo and water extends far beneath the soil in ways that modern hydrology is only beginning to fully understand. The rhizome networks of mature bamboo groves act as living sponges, absorbing rainfall at a rate dramatically higher than bare or grass-covered ground, and releasing it slowly into the water table over weeks and months rather than days. In watersheds where bamboo has been cleared, flash flooding and soil erosion increase measurably within a single monsoon season. In the Yangtze River Basin, large-scale bamboo replanting initiatives along riverbanks have been shown to reduce flood peak levels by as much as 30%. The grove does not merely grow beside the river. In a very real hydrological sense, the grove is what makes the river possible. Among the more meditative of bamboo's biological characteristics is the way it manages its own interior atmosphere. The hollow chambers within each bamboo comb are not simply empty. They contain a microenvironment of gases, primarily nitrogen and carbon dioxide, that is carefully regulated by the living tissue of the comb wall. This internal atmosphere buffers the stalk against extreme temperature changes, keeping the interior of the bamboo significantly cooler than the surrounding air on hot days and marginally warmer on cold ones. When you place your hand against the surface of a bamboo comb on a summer afternoon and feel that surprising coolness, you are feeling the grove regulating itself from the inside out, maintaining its own interior climate regardless of what the external world is doing. It is, in miniature, exactly what a meditation practice asks of the human mind. The Zen concept of Shoshin, beginner's mind, is one of the most celebrated ideas in contemplative philosophy, popularized in the West by the teacher Shunryu Suzuki in his 1970 book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. But the principle it describes is far older, and bamboo has been its living symbol for centuries. A new bamboo shoot emerging from the ground has no knowledge of last year's growth. It does not know that the culm that grew from this spot before it grew to 30 meters, or flowered, or was cut by a gardener's blade. It simply grows, completely freshly, with the whole of its being, as if bamboo had never been grown before. Every new culm is the first culm. Every morning in the grove is the first morning. This is not ignorance. This is the most sophisticated kind of wisdom. Across the highland regions of Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador, a species of bamboo known as Guajua angustifolia, often called the American bamboo, has been a cornerstone of both architecture and spiritual practice for indigenous communities for thousands of years. The Embra people of Colombia have long considered the bamboo grove a liminal space, a threshold between the ordinary world and the world of ancestors and spirits, and conduct specific ceremonies of remembrance and communication with the deceased within bamboo stands. The sound of wind in the Guajua Grove is understood not as weather but as voice, the voices of those who have gone before, speaking in the only language available to them across the boundary between worlds. The grove, in this cosmology, is not a place. It is a conversation. One of the most remarkable applications of bamboo in human history occurred not in architecture or art or medicine but in music, specifically in the development of the pan flute, independently invented in multiple cultures across Asia, South America, and parts of Africa, always from bamboo. The pan flute operates on a principle of breathtaking simplicity, a series of hollow bamboo tubes of graduated lengths, each producing a different pitch when breath is blown across the open end. The physics underlying this instrument, the relationship between the length of a hollow tube, the speed of air, and the frequency of the note produced, is the same physics that governs the sound of wind moving through a bamboo grove. The grove, in other words, is already a pan flute. Every time the wind moves through it, it is already playing. The Moon Bamboo Grove, Chikurin-in, is a sub-temple of the Kafukuji complex in Nara, Japan, whose garden was designed in the early Edo period specifically to frame the view of the moon through bamboo. The garden's entire layout, the placement of water, stone, and plant, was calibrated so that a visitor seated in the central pavilion at the correct hour of an autumn evening would see the full moon rising precisely between two particular bamboo culms, reflected simultaneously in the still pond below. The effect, by all historical accounts, was not merely beautiful but genuinely disorienting in the most productive sense. The visitor could not tell, for a suspended moment, whether the moon was above them or below them, whether they were looking up at the sky or down into the water. The boundary between self and cosmos, briefly and mercifully, dissolved. Bamboo charcoal, produced by burning bamboo culms in low oxygen conditions at high temperatures, has been used in East Asian medicine, cooking, and purification practices for over 2,000 years. It has a pore structure so fine and so extensive that a single gram of bamboo charcoal contains a surface area of approximately 600 square meters, more than the floor area of a large house, compressed into a piece no bigger than a grape. This extraordinary surface area makes it a highly effective filter and purifier, used in water filtration, air purification, soil amendment, and skin care. In traditional Japanese homes, bamboo charcoal was placed in bags in rooms, in water vessels, and in shoes, quietly absorbing impurities from every environment it inhabited without asking anything in return. It gave its entire interior surface to the work of purification and called nothing back. And here in the grove, as the light begins its slow late afternoon shift toward gold, something in the quality of the air itself changes. The shadows lengthen between the culms. The green deepens. The sounds of the grove, which have been with us since we first arrived, begin to feel less like sounds we are hearing and more like sounds we are part of, sounds that include us, that have woven us quietly into their pattern without our noticing the exact moment it happened. This is the gift the grove gives to those who stay long enough, not a dramatic revelation, not a sudden clarity, but a gradual, undeniable sense of belonging, of having always, in some sense, been here, of the boundary between the watcher and the watched growing so thin that it is no longer entirely clear which is which. The language before words does not arrive in a moment. It arrives the way bamboo grows, continuously, patiently, and from very deep roots. And when it does arrive, you do not hear it so much as become it. There is a quality of light that only exists in the last hour before dusk, when the sun has dropped low enough that its light travels through the maximum thickness of atmosphere before reaching you, and everything it touches turns briefly, unrepeatable gold. In a bamboo grove, this light does something particular. It catches the silica crystals embedded in the outer skin of every culm, fine particles of mineral that bamboo deposits in its cell walls as it matures, and for a few minutes each evening, the grove glows from the inside out, as if each stalk had stored the whole day's light and was now, quietly and without fanfare, returning it. You did not know you had been sitting inside a lantern, but you have been, all along. We are deep in the 7th passage now. 3 more to follow. The grove around us is neither the same grove that received us at the beginning, nor the grove it will be when we leave. It is the grove it is right now, in this exact quality of fading gold light, and this version of it will exist for perhaps another 40 minutes before it becomes something else entirely. Pay attention. This is not a dress rehearsal. The silica that creates that evening glow in bamboo culms serves a purpose far more fundamental than beauty. Bamboo deposits silicon dioxide, the same compound found in glass and quartz, throughout its cellular structure as it grows, and this mineralization is a primary reason for bamboo's extraordinary hardness and resistance to both insect damage and fungal decay. A properly dried and treated bamboo culm can last for decades without rotting, which is why bamboo has been used as a structural building material in tropical climates for thousands of years. The Andes, Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Pacific Islands all developed independent traditions of bamboo construction, each arriving separately at the same conclusion, that this grass, properly understood, was among the finest building materials the natural world had ever produced. In the mountains of Yunnan province in southwestern China, there exists a tradition of bamboo architecture so refined and so ancient that UNESCO has recognized it as intangible cultural heritage. The Dai people of Yunnan have constructed their homes entirely from bamboo for at least 2,000 years. Walls, floors, roofs, furniture, and even the vessels in which food is cooked, all from a single material harvested from the groves surrounding the village. The Dai do not think of bamboo as a resource to use. They think of it as a relative, a living member of the extended community whose well-being is inseparable from their own. When a family builds a new home, they do not simply cut bamboo. They thank it. They plant more than they take. They understand that the grove's health and their own are the same health, expressed in two different forms of life. The speed at which bamboo can restore a degraded landscape is almost without parallel in the plant kingdom. In areas of severe soil erosion, deforestation, or agricultural exhaustion, bamboo can be established from rhizome cuttings within a single season and will begin stabilizing the soil within weeks. Within 5 years, a bamboo planting can restore topsoil depth, reintroduce invertebrate and bird life, and begin sequestering carbon at its full mature rate. The Chinese government has used large-scale bamboo planting as a primary tool in its Lost Plateau restoration project, one of the largest ecological recovery efforts in human history, transforming tens of thousands of hectares of bare, eroded hillside back into functioning, biodiverse landscape. The bamboo does not ask whether the land deserves to be healed. It simply begins. The Zen practice of session, an intensive meditation retreat typically lasting 7 days, during which practitioners sit in silence for up to 16 hours per day, has been conducted in proximity to bamboo groves since the earliest days of Japanese Zen. The specific acoustic buffering provided by a bamboo grove was considered practically and spiritually essential. Practically, because the grove absorbs and softens external sound, creating the consistent quiet that deep sitting requires. Spiritually, because the sounds that do penetrate, wind, water, the voice of the bamboo itself, were understood not as distractions from meditation but as its living content. The sounds of the grove were not interruptions to the silence. They were what silence, when it was healthy and alive, sounded like. Bamboo has played a quiet but significant role in the history of medicine across multiple cultures simultaneously. In Ayurvedic medicine, the ancient Indian healing system dating back over 3,000 years, tabashir, a silica-rich substance that forms inside the hollow chambers of certain bamboo species, was prescribed for respiratory conditions, fever, and as a general tonic for the nervous system. In traditional Chinese medicine, the inner lining of bamboo combs was used to treat anxiety, insomnia, and what practitioners described as heat of the heart, an excess of restless mental energy. In both systems, the medicine that bamboo offered was understood to be related to its essential character: cooling, calming, clarifying. The plant that taught stillness also, it turned out, prescribed it. One of the most profoundly meditative structures ever built from bamboo is the Katsura Imperial Villa in Kyoto, constructed in the early 17th century and considered by architects worldwide to be one of the greatest achievements in the history of human design. The villa's gardens use bamboo fencing, takagaki, of extraordinary sophistication, in which different weaving patterns, heights, and densities of bamboo create a grammar of enclosure and revelation as the visitor moves through the space. Some sections of fence are woven tightly, blocking the view entirely and drawing attention inward. Others are loosely woven, allowing filtered glimpses of what lies beyond. Still others consist of single vertical combs spaced precisely far enough apart that the eye can rest between them without fully seeing through. Each fence is a different instruction about where to place your attention. The garden is a curriculum made of bamboo and space. In the Taoist philosophical tradition, bamboo is associated with the principle of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, or effortless action, one of the central concepts of the Tao Te Ching, the foundational text attributed to Laozi, written approximately in the 6th century BC. Wu Wei does not mean passivity or inaction. It means action so perfectly aligned with the nature of things that it requires no force. The way water finds the lowest point without effort, the way bamboo grows upward without striving. The bamboo does not decide to be strong. It does not resolve to be flexible. It does not practice resilience. It simply grows according to its nature, and its nature happens to be among the most resilient things on earth. This is Wu Wei made visible. This is the whole of Taoist philosophy, standing in a grove, swaying slightly in the wind. The oldest known musical instrument made from bamboo was discovered in the Jiahu archaeological site in Hunan Province, China, and dates to approximately 7000 BC, making it among the oldest playable musical instruments ever found anywhere on Earth. The Jiahu flutes, carved from the wing bones of cranes but later replicated in bamboo, demonstrate a tonal sophistication that surprised researchers when they were first analyzed. The holes are positioned not by guesswork but with an understanding of acoustic intervals that suggests a developed musical culture far older than previously imagined. Music, it seems, has been inseparable from bamboo for nearly as long as music has existed. The grove has been a concert hall since before the concept of a concert hall existed. And now the gold is deepening toward amber, and the amber will deepen toward the blue hour, and the blue hour will become the dark in which the grove makes its most private sounds, the settling of roots, the slow movement of water through rhizome, the almost inaudible percussion of the grove breathing through the night. You will not hear most of this. It is not meant for ears. It is the sound the world makes when it believes no one is listening, which is, perhaps, its most honest sound of all. What grows in the dark grows without audience, without approval, without the need for anyone to witness it and confirm that it is real. The bamboo shoot that pushes through cold soil in the deep of night does not require the morning to validate its rising. It rises because rising is its nature. And somewhere beneath the surface of the person sitting quietly in this golden, amber, deepening grove, something else is also rising, something that has been building in the dark for longer than you have been aware of it, patient as a rhizome, strong as silica, certain as the return of light. Trust what grows in the dark. The grove has been trusting it for 40 million years. There is a version of this grove that almost no one ever sees. It exists between the last of the light and the first of the next morning, a grove that belongs entirely to itself, watched by no human eye, narrated by no human voice. The combs stand in the dark as they stand in the light, making the same sounds, conducting the same slow underground business of root and water and mineral exchange. The darkness changes nothing about what the bamboo is. It only changes what we can see of it. And perhaps that is the most important lesson the night grove offers, that the truth of a thing does not depend on our ability to perceive it. The bamboo does not need to be seen to be fully, completely, magnificently itself. We are in the 8th passage now. 2 more after this. The journey is nearly complete, and the grove around us has grown so familiar that it feels less like a place we are visiting and more like a place we have always, in some sense, carried within us. Let us sit with the night a little longer. There is still so much to learn from the dark. Bamboo has a relationship with the night sky that most grove visitors never discover, because it requires darkness to reveal itself. The outer skin of a bamboo comb contains bioluminescent compounds that, under specific conditions of humidity and fungal interaction, can produce a faint visible glow in complete darkness, a phenomenon documented by naturalists in Southeast Asia and referenced in Chinese records as far back as the Han Dynasty, where groves of glowing bamboo were described as sacred sites. Places where the boundary between the earthly and the celestial was considered especially thin. Modern researchers have confirmed that certain fungi colonizing bamboo produce genuine bioluminescence. The grove that glows at dusk from silica now glows at midnight from something older and stranger still, life illuminating life, in the absence of any other light. The tradition of night meditation in bamboo groves has a specific lineage within Chinese Chan Buddhism, the tradition from which Japanese Zen directly descends. The Tang Dynasty master Baizhang Huaihai, who lived from 720 to 814 CE and is credited with writing the first formal code of conduct for Chinese Buddhist monasteries, prescribed regular periods of outdoor night sitting as essential to monastic training. The bamboo grove, specifically, was recommended because its sounds in darkness, stripped of visual distraction, heard purely as sound, were considered to bypass the conceptual mind more efficiently than any amount of daytime sitting. When you cannot see the bamboo, you can only hear it. And when you can only hear it, you cannot think about it. You can only be with it. This, Baizhang taught, was the shortest path to the experience of pure awareness. The bamboo grove's role in night ecology is as significant as its role in daylight. Many species of moth, beetle, and other nocturnal insects depend on bamboo groves as primary habitat. The dense, sheltered interior of a mature grove maintains a microclimate several degrees warmer than the surrounding landscape on cold nights, making it a critical refuge for cold-sensitive invertebrates during seasonal temperature drops. These insects, in turn, are the primary food source for the bats and nocturnal birds that hunt through the grove after dark, navigating its vertical architecture by echolocation and memory with a precision that still astonishes biologists. The grove at night is not emptied of life. It is simply handed to a different shift of inhabitants, who know its geometry as intimately as any monk who has ever sat beneath its canopy. The concept of yugen, one of the most profound and untranslatable aesthetic concepts in Japanese philosophy, finds its most perfect natural expression in the bamboo grove at night. Yugen describes a quality of profound, mysterious beauty that lies just beneath the surface of visible things, an awareness of the universe that triggers an emotional response too deep for words, too subtle for full comprehension. It is the feeling of watching fog move through a grove of bamboo at dusk. It is the sound of a distant bell heard through rain. It is the awareness, sudden and wordless, that everything is connected to everything else by threads too fine to see, and that you, sitting here in the dark, are part of the weaving. The No theater playwright Zimi Modikyo, writing in the 15th century, described yugen as the highest achievement of art. But he also noted, with characteristic Zen restraint, that nature had been achieving it effortlessly for much longer than art had existed. Among the most medically significant discoveries related to bamboo in recent decades is the identification of potent antimicrobial and antifungal compounds in bamboo leaf extract, specifically a class of flavonoids called orientin and vitexin, found in the leaves of several temperate bamboo species. These compounds have demonstrated in laboratory conditions the ability to inhibit the growth of a range of bacterial strains, including some that have developed resistance to conventional antibiotics. Traditional healers in China, Japan, and the Indian subcontinent had been using bamboo leaf preparations to treat infections and promote wound healing for thousands of years before these compounds were identified. A reminder, as occurs so often at the intersection of traditional knowledge and modern science, that the grove knew things long before the laboratory did. The symbolic use of bamboo in East Asian funerary and memorial traditions is ancient and nuanced. In both Chinese and Japanese practice, bamboo has long been placed at grave sites and used in memorial ceremonies not as a symbol of death but as its precise opposite, as a symbol of the life that continues. Because bamboo is evergreen, maintaining its color and vitality through winter when most plants appear to die, it became the natural emblem of that which persists beyond the visible. The soul, in many East Asian cosmological frameworks, was understood to be like bamboo. The surface form might be cut, might fall, might return to earth, but the rhizome beneath continued, patient and intact, ready to send up new growth when the season changed. Grief, in this understanding, is not the end of a thing. It is winter in the grove. Spring will come. It always has. The practice of chakin, the formal folding and use of the bamboo-handled tea whisk in the Japanese tea ceremony, is one of the most precise and meditative manual arts ever developed by human hands. The chasen, or tea whisk, is crafted from a single piece of bamboo split with extraordinary skill into as many as 120 fine tines, then shaped and curved to create the instrument's distinctive form. The making of a single chasen requires years of apprenticeship to master, and a skilled craftsman produces no more than a few per day. But the meditation embedded in the making is equaled by the meditation embedded in the using. The specific wrist motion required to whisk matcha tea, a rapid, precise back and forth movement calibrated to create a perfectly smooth bowl of tea, demands a quality of focused, relaxed attention so specific that tea masters have compared it directly to breath meditation. The hands are still. The wrist moves. The mind, occupied completely with this single small act, is, for a few moments, empty of everything else. In the forests of Myanmar, Thailand, and Laos, certain species of bamboo have been documented communicating with neighboring plants through mycorrhizal networks, the underground fungal threads that connect plant root systems and allow the exchange of nutrients, water, and chemical signals. When a bamboo plant is attacked by insects or subjected to drought stress, chemical signals have been detected traveling through these fungal networks to neighboring bamboo plants, which then begin producing their own defensive compounds before any physical contact with the stressor has occurred. The grove does not wait for damage to arrive. It communicates the approach of harm and prepares collectively. It is, in the most literal biological sense, a community of mutual care, each member alert to the condition of every other, each response a shared response, each vulnerability a shared responsibility. And here, in the 8th passage, with the grove full of darkness and the night full of its own particular wisdom, something becomes available that daylight never quite allows. In the dark, the visual dominance that organizes so much of our waking experience falls away, and the other senses, hearing, smell, the felt sense of air temperature and movement on skin, take their proper place alongside it. The grove in daylight is beautiful. The grove in darkness is true. You cannot see where the bamboo ends and the air begins. You cannot see where you end and the grove begins. The boundaries that seemed so solid and so obvious when you arrived have been, over these 8 passages, quietly and thoroughly dissolved, not by any effort of yours, but by the simple, patient persistence of the grove doing what groves do. In the dark, everything is continuous. In the dark, the separation was always the illusion. what remains, when the light goes and the shapes dissolve and the night holds everything in its undifferentiated, equalizing embrace, is not nothing. It is the truest thing. It is the grove, and you, and the 40 million years of patient growing that made this moment possible, all breathing together in the velvet, whispering dark. There is a moment in every night that has no name in most languages, though the Japanese come closest with the word akatsuki, the first faint brightening before dawn, when the sky is still fully dark but has begun, somewhere deep within its darkness, to remember that it knows how to be light. It is the most private moment in any day. The world is neither one thing nor the other. The night has not yet released its hold, and the morning has not yet arrived to claim what belongs to it. Everything is in between. Everything is possible. Everything is very, very still. In a bamboo grove, akatsuki produces something extraordinary. The dew that has collected through the night on every leaf and comb catches the first photons of the approaching day, photons not yet visible to human eyes, and begins, invisibly, to return them. The grove is preparing before you are. It has been preparing all night. And now, in this ninth passage, as we turn together toward the light that is coming whether we are ready for it or not, the bamboo has one more set of truths to offer. Listen closely. The grove speaks most clearly in the hour just before everything changes. The dawn chorus that accompanies the first light in the bamboo grove is among the most studied and most celebrated acoustic phenomena in natural soundscape research. Birds that roost within the grove's sheltered interior begin vocalizing before any light is visible, triggered not by the light itself but by an internal circadian clock calibrated to anticipate it. In bamboo groves specifically, researchers have noted that the density and height of the combs create a reverberant acoustic chamber that amplifies the dawn chorus, wrapping it around the listener from every direction simultaneously, so that sound seems to come not from individual birds in specific locations but from the grove itself, as a single, many-voiced utterance. The grove does not accompany the dawn. The grove announces it. Among the ancient traditions of bamboo use that have recently attracted serious scientific attention is the practice of bamboo forest therapy as it has been formalized in South Korea, where it is known as Dinama Sup, literally, bamboo forest healing. South Korean researchers, building on the Japanese Shinrin-yoka literature but focusing specifically on bamboo environments, have published findings showing that 30 minutes of quiet walking in a bamboo grove produces not only the expected reductions in cortisol and blood pressure, but a statistically significant increase in natural killer cell activity, the immune system's primary defense against viral infection and certain cancers. The grove does not merely calm the mind. At a cellular level, it actively strengthens the body's capacity to defend and repair itself. The ancient healers who prescribed time in the bamboo grove were, it turns out, writing a prescription that modern immunology has only recently been able to fill in. The Sagano bamboo forest in Kyoto's Arashiyama district, the grove most people picture when they imagine a bamboo forest, was officially recognized by the Japanese government as one of the country's 100 soundscapes that should be preserved for future generations, a designation established in 1996 to protect natural and cultural acoustic environments under threat from urbanization and noise pollution. This recognition placed the sound of the Sagano Grove, the specific acoustic signature of its particular species, density, and wind exposure, on equal legal and cultural footing with the sound of temple bells, traditional festivals, and other elements of Japan's intangible sonic heritage. A sound, in other words, was deemed worth protecting not because of what produced it, but because of what it produced in the people who heard it. The grove was recognized, formally and legally, as medicine. The martial art of kendo, the Japanese way of the sword, uses bamboo in its most fundamental practice tool, the shurnai, a training sword made from 4 strips of bamboo bound together. Bamboo was chosen for this purpose not arbitrarily but with deep understanding of its material properties. It is light enough for speed, strong enough to absorb repeated impact without shattering, and flexible enough to give slightly on contact rather than transmitting the full force of a blow to the practitioner's body. Generations of kendo students have learned the principles of focus, timing, breath, and presence through a weapon made of grass. The shurnai does not merely simulate a sword. It teaches, through the specific way bamboo moves and responds, a quality of engaged, alert, grounded attention that is, in every meaningful sense, identical to the attention cultivated in seated meditation. Different form. The same mind. In the remote forests of the Sagarmatha region in Nepal, at altitudes where few plants survive, a species of high-altitude bamboo called Himalaya calamus falconeri grows in dense thickets that serve as critical habitat for the red panda, an animal so ancient in evolutionary terms that it represents an entirely separate family of mammals from any living relative, a sole surviving branch of a lineage that was once far more diverse. The red panda depends on this bamboo not only for food but for shelter, building its sleeping nests in the dense culm thickets where predators cannot easily follow. The bamboo grove at altitude is not merely a forest feature. It is the last refuge of something irreplaceable, a living creature whose continued existence depends entirely on the continued existence of the grove around it. To sit in the presence of bamboo is to sit in the presence of deep time, and of everything deep time has chosen to keep. The art of ikebana, Japanese flower arranging, uses bamboo not only as a vessel and structural element but as a subject of arrangement in its own right, and the school of ikebana most directly influenced by Zen Buddhism, the Sogetsu school, has developed a specific philosophical framework for working with bamboo that mirrors the principles of seated meditation almost exactly. The arranger is taught not to impose a vision on the bamboo but to listen for what the bamboo itself suggests, to find the arrangement that the specific weight, curve, and character of each individual piece is already reaching toward, and then to provide only the minimum intervention necessary to let that potential become visible. The art is not in adding. It is in the precise, patient removal of everything that obscures what was already there. This, the Sogetsu masters say, is not just a principle of flower arranging. It is a principle of everything. Bamboo paper, washi in Japanese, shuanji in Chinese, remains among the finest and most durable papers ever produced by human hands. Chinese bamboo paper, developed during the Tang dynasty and refined over subsequent centuries, was the medium on which many of the world's most important Buddhist sutras were copied and preserved. The specific quality of bamboo paper, its slight translucency, its ability to accept ink without bleeding, its extraordinary longevity compared to wood pulp paper, made it the preferred choice of calligraphers and sutra copyists for whom the physical act of writing was itself a form of meditation, each character a practice in breath and presence. Some bamboo paper manuscripts produced in the Song dynasty, over 1,000 years ago, remain today in a state of preservation that modern archivists describe as astonishing. The grove preserved not just the words. It preserved the silence in which they were written. The Zen master Dogen, who lived from 1200 to 1253 CE and founded the Soto school of Japanese Zen, arguably the most influential single figure in the history of Japanese Buddhism, wrote in his masterwork Shobogenzo that the sound of bamboo striking is one of three experiences most commonly associated with the moment of awakening in the Zen tradition. When you hear the sound of bamboo, Dogen wrote, do not think that bamboo is making the sound, and do not think that you are hearing it. At the moment of hearing, there is only the sound. This instruction, so simple, so radical, so impossible to fully explain and yet so immediately recognizable to anyone who has sat quietly in a grove, encapsulates the entire project of Zen practice in a single sentence spoken by a plant. Not a teacher, not a sutra, a comb struck by wind or stone, saying everything that needed to be said. And now, in the deep quiet of this ninth passage, something is happening in the body of the grove that no eye can see, but that is as real and as certain as the approaching light. In the rhizome network beneath the soil, the first signals of the coming day are already moving, chemical messages carried through mycorrhizal threads, adjusting the grove's physiology for the shift from night to day, from rest to the renewed work of photosynthesis, from darkness to whatever the morning brings. The grove does not wait for the light to arrive before it begins preparing. It prepares in the dark, trusting completely in what it cannot yet see. It has done this every single day for 40 million years, and it has never once been wrong. The light always comes. The morning always comes. The grove has never doubted this, not for a single night of the uncountable millions it has lived through, and its certainty on this matter, earned not through belief but through direct, unbroken experience across geological time, is perhaps the most profound gift it has left to offer. Trust the approaching light. Prepare for it now, in the dark, before it arrives. The grove will show you how. The light is here. Not the full, confident light of midday, not yet. This is the first light, the tentative light, the light that arrives as if unsure of its welcome and then, finding the grove exactly as it left it, grows slowly certain of its place. The bamboo combs, dark through the night, begin to return their green. Not all at once, not dramatically, but the way all true returns happen, gradually, from within, the color coming back to things like memory returning after sleep, like the knowledge of who you are reassembling itself quietly in the minutes after waking. The grove is the same grove it was at midnight. It is the same grove it was when you arrived. And yet the light makes it new again, as it makes it new every single morning, as it will make it new every morning after this one until the last morning there is. This is the 10th and final passage. 100 facts. One grove. One journey that, like all journeys worth taking, has led us not to somewhere new but somewhere ancient, somewhere we recognize, somewhere that recognizes us in return. The bamboo has one last set of truths to share before it releases us back to the world. Receive them the way the grove receives the morning light, openly, without grasping, with gratitude for what is arriving and trust in what it will bring. The green that is returning now to the bamboo culms around you is produced by one of the most efficient photosynthetic systems in the plant kingdom. Bamboo converts sunlight to biomass with a productivity rate that plant scientists describe as exceptional, certain species producing up to 25 tons of dry biomass per hectare per year, compared to an average of 5 to 8 tons for most fast-growing trees. This extraordinary efficiency is why bamboo has been identified by climate scientists as one of the most promising large-scale tools for rapid carbon drawdown available to a warming planet. It does not need to be engineered, subsidized, or invented. It already exists in every tropical and subtropical region on Earth, ready to begin its work the moment the conditions allow. The solution, as it so often turns out, was already growing. The practice of Zen garden design, karasansui, the dry landscape garden of raked gravel and carefully placed stone, is so closely associated in Western imagination with Japanese spirituality that it is easy to forget that bamboo, not stone, was the original medium of Zen outdoor practice. Long before the first dry garden was raked, monks were sitting in bamboo groves. The great garden designer Kobori Enshu, who lived from 1579 to 1647 and is credited with defining the aesthetic principles of the classic Japanese garden, wrote explicitly that the bamboo grove was the standard against which all designed garden spaces should be measured, the model of a space that was simultaneously structured and wild, ordered and alive, human in its cultivation and utterly beyond human control in its essential nature. Every Japanese garden since has been, in some sense, an attempt to remember what the bamboo grove already knew. Bamboo has played an unexpectedly significant role in the history of human rights and political resistance. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Vietnamese poets and scholars opposing French colonial rule used bamboo as their central symbol of national identity and resilience. The bamboo hedge, Lai Tre, surrounding every Vietnamese village was understood as both physical boundary and metaphysical statement, a declaration that what grew inside was rooted deeply enough to outlast whatever came against it from outside. Ho Chi Minh himself invoked bamboo explicitly in speeches about Vietnamese national character, describing his people as bamboo, supple, communal, impossible to uproot. In a tradition stretching back further still, the Trien Kio, Vietnam's most beloved literary work, written in the early 19th century, uses bamboo imagery throughout as a cipher for endurance, dignity, and the survival of inner integrity through outer adversity. The grove as backbone, the grove as nation. Modern materials science has in recent decades begun to unlock applications for bamboo that would have seemed extraordinary even a generation ago. Researchers at ETH Zurich and several leading Chinese universities have developed processes for producing bamboo-based composites, materials in which bamboo fiber is compressed, laminated, and treated to produce boards, panels, and structural elements with mechanical properties exceeding those of many hardwoods and approaching those of fiberglass. These materials are being used in everything from furniture to aircraft interior panels to high-performance bicycle frames. A bamboo bicycle frame, properly engineered, absorbs road vibration more effectively than carbon fiber while being fully biodegradable at end of life, grown from the earth, returned to the earth, having served its purpose completely in between. The circle closes. The rhizome continues. The specific quality of attention that a bamboo grove cultivates in those who spend sustained time within it has been given a name by the psychologist and philosopher William James, though he wrote decades before bamboo grove research existed and was describing something he had observed in human consciousness more broadly. James called it voluntary attention held without effort, a paradoxical state in which the mind is fully alert and fully receptive without the tension or fatigue of deliberate concentration. This is the state that meditators spend years of practice attempting to cultivate. It is the state that the bamboo grove, through its particular combination of soft fascination, acoustic complexity, biophilic familiarity, and living stillness, produces more or less automatically in anyone who remains within it long enough. The grove does not teach you to meditate. It meditates you, if you will only stay. Among the final and most quietly astonishing facts about bamboo is its role in the origin of one of the world's oldest continuous art forms, shadow puppetry. The earliest recorded shadow puppet performances, dating to the Han Dynasty in China approximately 2,000 years ago, used figures cut from bamboo and illuminated by oil lamps to cast moving shadows on translucent screens, telling mythological stories, instructing communities in moral principles, and creating experiences of collective imagination in the dark. The puppeteers understood what they were doing. They were using the grove's own material to make a world of moving shadows, of things seen and not seen, of presence implied by absence. The hand behind the screen, the voice behind the silence, the rhizome beneath the soil. In every tradition bamboo has touched, the most important thing has always been what cannot be directly seen. The tea plant and the bamboo grove have coexisted for so long, and so productively, that horticulturalists now understand them as companion species. The shade and humidity created by a bamboo grove providing ideal growing conditions for high-quality tea, while the tea plant's root system helps stabilize the soil around bamboo rhizomes. The great tea-growing regions of China, Fujian, Yunnan, Zhejiang, are also the great bamboo regions, and the relationship between the two plants is ancient enough that traditional farmers in these areas did not think of them as separate crops but as a single, integrated system. The grove made the tea. The tea ceremony made a home for the grove in the deepest practices of human spiritual life. And the cup of tea placed before a meditating monk contained, in this light, not just water and leaf, but the whole long history of two plants growing quietly together toward the same essential purpose. The Zen concept of satori, sudden awakening, the moment of direct insight into the nature of reality that Zen practice is oriented toward, has been described by those who have experienced it in many ways across many centuries. But one description recurs more frequently than any other. It is described as the moment when the boundary between the self and the world disappears. Not the thought that the boundary is arbitrary. Not the intellectual understanding that separateness is constructed. The actual, felt, direct experience of the boundary simply not being there, of the hearing and the heard being the same event, of the seeing and the seen being the same act, of the self and the grove being, always and without exception, a single continuous process that only appeared, from inside the thinking mind, to be two things. The bamboo grove has been pointing at this experience for as long as human beings have been standing inside it. It has never once used words to do so. And now the light is fully here. The dew is beginning to lift from the highest leaves, rising as mist into the warming air above the canopy, returning to the sky the moisture the grove borrowed through the night. The birds are at the peak of their morning chorus, each voice weaving through the vertical architecture of the culms until the whole grove hums with a layered, golden sound that is neither music nor speech but something that contains both. Something that the human nervous system responds to with a recognition older than language. You have been here for the length of 10 passages, for the whole arc of a night, and the beginning of a new morning. You are not the same person who entered this grove, though nothing dramatic has happened to you. You have not been transformed. You have been returned. Returned to something quieter and more essential than the noise that brought you here. Return to the version of yourself that existed before the world got loud. This is what the bamboo grove has always offered, to every monk and farmer and wandering poet and lost traveler who ever found their way beneath its canopy. Not answers. Not silence exactly. Not even peace, in the simple sense of the word. Something more durable than any of those things. The felt knowledge, carried now in the body, not just the mind, that there is a place in you as rooted as rhizome, as flexible as comb, as patient as a shoot growing in the dark for years before it breaks the surface, as hollow and therefore resonant as the space inside the stalk through which the wind finds its voice. That place has always been there. The grove did not create it. The grove simply reminded you of what you had forgotten you already were. Go gently back into the world. Take the grove with you. It fits, you will find, wherever you do,